It's official, we think. Jim Harbaugh will return as Michigan football coach. We will discuss that and more next on this week's episode of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Tip. Caught.
They said you can't be Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it. Get it. Touchdown. Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, I'm Steve Deace. Welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. Coming up a little bit later on in the program, a little reconciliation. We do this every single year. We look back at my college football preview that I put out each and every summer, and we look back, which is really a forecast more than a preview. It's my forecast of how I think the upcoming season will unfold and conclude, and we'll go back and see how those predictions did and let Mark Rogers return here in the 10-minute war and give me a grade for this year's forecast. That's coming up in the next segment of the show. But first, Jim Harbaugh will return. Yes, he announced yesterday that he is coming back to resume his happy mission as Michigan football coach, letting President Santaono know, who then let the world know, not letting his direct supervisor, the athletics director at Michigan, Warde Manuel, his former college teammate, know, who found out from the president. And we know that because the president told us that's how he found out. Now, more on that in a moment and what that may mean. But keep in mind, I think he's back. I think he's back. Just going to say, though, 2 Fridays ago, he put out a statement. I intend to be the coach at Michigan. I expect to be the coach at Michigan. On Monday afternoon, 48 hours later, he was interviewing for 2 hours via Zoom with the Broncos. So now Adam Schefter is reporting that Jimmy called the Broncos to formally remove his name from consideration. So this time, we're going to assume he means it. He will be back as the football coach at Michigan, even though this would be like the 4th or 5th time he told us, and so hopefully this one counts. Here's how we'll know. We need to see the contract. It's not done yet. We need to see the buyout because that's what's going to fix recruiting more than anything else, and along with the NIL situation at Michigan, which I think is in the process of being fixed bigly. But the negative recruiting will continue until morale improves. And morale will not improve until we see a buyout with some teeth that shows a level of commitment. You look at a buyout, I know I said last week on the show I'd make it $50 million, but let's be a little less tongue-in-cheek. Let's say it's in the $8 to $10 million range. Well, now if you're an NFL team, a year from now, he has another great year, probably loses a lot of talent. Maybe you're thinking that's our year to go get Harbaugh and pluck him from the NFL. First of all, they don't hire a lot of 60-year-old coaches in the NFL today, although if you look at the way some of these young guns have been coaching in these playoffs, looking at you, Brandon Staley, might not be a bad idea. Anyway, you're looking at a 60-year-old coach. Then you're looking at, a $10 million buyout on top of a $15 million a year deal. That's a pretty hefty investment. That will certainly scare some people off. So the buyout is the thing in which we will catch the conscience of the king. There must be a buyout here that sends a clear signal to the 24 and 25 recruiting classes that Jim Harbaugh does intend, for the most part, given his age, to more than likely end his coaching career at his alma mater, the University of Michigan. So that is the thing to watch moving forward. At least this year's Harbaugh drama didn't last as long as the last 2 years did. And in Jimmy's defense, the one 2 years ago wasn't his fault. Well, actually, no, it kind of was because he sucked. And that's why we had the NFL watch, because Michigan was fine if he found an NFL job rather than return. He did not, so they brought him back, gave him quite the haircut with a big reduction in salary. And then, of course, next year, gave him a big raise. He flirted with the NFL, interviewed with the Vikings on National Signing Day, said I'll never do it again, and then, of course, did it again. But here we are again, but we think it's over again. Did you follow all of that? Right. The other subplot to keep in mind here. I used to cover sports for a living full-time. I have been a full-time sports fan for as long as I can remember, man, elementary school. I don't ever recall an athletics director finding out from the school president that the head football coach is returning. I've just never heard of that. And if it's happened, I promise you a school president has never told us this. But Michigan's new university president, Santa Ono, did tell us that yesterday in a tweeted statement. Hey, I just got off the phone with Jim Harbaugh. Let me know. He's going to be back coaching the Michigan Wolverines. And I informed Warde Manuel of this decision. So keep in mind, these guys were college teammates. They've negotiated and renegotiated several contracts with one another. And maybe that's the issue. I mean, it kind of seems to me, especially when you throw in the Eric Bakich situation, the John Beilein situation. I was just at Michigan Stadium in a luxury box in a suite, still couldn't get a Wi-Fi signal to save my life. I mean, when the football coach successfully goes over your head, and remember a couple weeks ago when they put out the statements, Harbaugh and Santayano put out the statements, nothing from Warde Manuel again. I think Zach Shaw at 24/7 Sports said that Warde Manuel has not faced questions from the media in a press conference about the direction overall of the athletic department in 4 years. I don't know, man. Kind of feels to me like Warde Manuel might want to make sure his resume is updated. That might not be a much longer term relationship, given the way that this has gone. Because it's not like Santayano did anything to dispel notions of a power struggle between Jim Harbaugh and Warde Manuel. And it's pretty clear, given the way this announcement came down yesterday, that it's at least implied Jimmy won that one, should it actually exist. So that is a subplot to watch for the future. Also, something to watch for the future. Michigan may look like a national title game or bust team in 2023, given everybody coming back along with the head coach. But that's something we'll talk about a little bit more in depth on next week's episode. When we return, we'll get Mark Rogers' thoughts on Jimmy's return again. And then we'll look back on my college football forecast for 2022. How bad did I suck this year? We'll find out next. Well, he's back again. He was under the weather a week ago, and now he has returned. Our good friend Mark Rogers, perhaps the world's one and only reasonable bucknut, joins us to resume our 10-minute war. here on Michigan Podcast. Don't forget to check out Mark's outstanding college football channel right here on YouTube, which is really, especially, you want to watch it year round, but especially during the off season is when you get news that might keep you ahead of some very profitable markets moving forward. So Mark, good to see you again, my friend. Hope you had a great holiday season. You're feeling better. How you been?
Steve, I appreciate it. I think the numbers 42 and 41 will forever send me under the weather. I think maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
You surprised C.J. Stroud took his decision down to the last minute only to then turn around and go pro?
No and no, but I do understand the surprise of some. Why it was taking that long, of course, there was a big NIL effort made by the Ohio State University, but I never really gave it a serious thought. Once I talked to some people that are closer to the situation than myself, I never really gave it a serious thought, but there had to be some level of curiosity as to, okay, we're not talking about a fourth round selection trying to make that decision. We're talking about a guy that's a slam dunk, top 5 to 10 pick. So there must be something to this effort, and he's giving it some consideration.
I mean, in my opinion, the two best NFL draft tapes that college quarterbacks assembled this year, Bryce Young against Alabama in a game his team lost. I mean, that was Bryce Young versus the world, the entire state of Tennessee, the stadium, the programs. I mean, he nearly won that damn game by himself. And then, your guys' game against Georgia. I mean, if I'm an NFL team, and that's what I wanted to see out of C.J. Stroud. I always knew, very talented, arm talent guy. Reminds me a little bit of Jared Goff from my Lions. If the team around him is very good, the ball placement will be elite, but the team around him has to be good, right? Okay. And of course, if you're drafted in the top 5, chances are the team around him not going to be good. But I thought that was the first time in his 2 years at Ohio State that I saw him nearly will his team to win and just let it hang out and go all in. In fact, I thought it was one of the best performances by an Ohio State quarterback I have seen in my life. So I can understand why a guy might think, all right, I did that against the defending national and current reigning national champions. That might be the tape that I want to kind of go out on. I can't blame a guy for that whatsoever. So let's look back. We're going to have all the rest of this offseason to look ahead. Well, quick, let me do this too. Jim Harbaugh returning again. Yeah, I know. I had kind of the same reaction at the top of the show too, but your thoughts?
Okay, Jim. Just please watch what you say in the future, or maybe it doesn't matter. You know, I've got all this advice for the way Jim Harbaugh should be conducting his career, but he flies in the face of all of it, and he still can get away with whatever he needs to get away with. So I guess the leverage ploy was what this was. A lot of it was about. I think he legitimately continues to have interest in the NFL. So I don't think he's just doing that just to gain leverage with Michigan. But in the meantime, might as well gain leverage with what he wants his program to look like going forward at Michigan. And it appears as though he was able to get some of those things that I think we all believe, if you understand the current landscape and future landscape of college football, is required to have a legitimate shot to win a national championship. And so he wanted those things and he got them. And again, my first initial response is, okay, I need to advise Jim Harbaugh on all these things and how to handle the media or stay away from the media during these situations. But it doesn't come back to burn him regardless. So kudos to him.
You are a grizzled veteran covering the greatest sport on earth, Mark, college football. Have you ever heard of a head coach picking up the phone and calling the university president, not the AD, to inform him of his return, and then the AD informing the AD, the school president informing the AD? And we know this because he then tweeted out, I called athletic director Warde Manuel to let him know Jim will be returning. Have you ever seen anything like that ever in your career? And do you agree with me in what I said a few minutes ago? Warde Manuel may want to consider just having an updated resume handy.
Well, he may want to go to that next step to be, ready to be marketable, not just for the fact that that's what actually happened, which is bad enough, but that it was then communicated that that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we not only are going through the wrong channels of the way things are typically done and bypassing a person that's supposed to be in play and the boss of Jim Harbaugh, but we are also then going to represent it that way on social media, and we don't care. We're not going to protect Warde Manuel. We're going to make him look like the insignificant figure that he apparently is there.
There you go. Well, speaking of insignificance, let's go back and take a look at my annual college football forecast that I release every July. And for people that are new around here, remember, this is a preview in name only. It's really a forecast of how I think the season's going to go. And really the linchpin of my preview every year are my crystal ball top 25 predictions for the season. So I thought we'd quickly go through these. I'll let you be the judge. I love to do reconciliation, accountability. I'm a big believer in it. All right. And you can give me a half point, no points, or a full point as we go through these 25. Now, I've not looked at these since like August, so I don't even know how many of them I remember. So I may be laughing at myself or cutting myself. We shall see. Mark, you ready to go?
I am ready to go. I will tell you real quick, Steve, that what I like about this and what I reckon it to is when I used to know basically every NFL and Major League Baseball stat in history, and people used to quiz me on that. Mm-hmm. I took more pride in not necessarily just knowing by memory the statistics, but by figuring things out. Like if somebody said, name all the guys that have hit 300 with 25 steals and 25 home runs, and not knowing what that is, but being able to figure it out. What I appreciate about what you've done here, even when you've technically missed it, you were channeled in the right direction.
Okay, well, let's find out. Number one. For the first time ever, and maybe in a preview of what's to come in the future era of college football, all 4 bids to the college football playoff will come from just 2 leagues, the SEC and the Big Ten. So I think I might get a half a point there, right? I had 2 Big Ten teams in the playoff.
Absolutely, Steve. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. If anything, the spirit of this was right where you were. Mm-hmm. A number of things could have happened concerning Alabama and Tennessee to usher them, or LSU to usher them into a playoff spot alongside Georgia. The SEC is still the best conference, and the Big Ten, you had the Big Two making it. So again, you were right on target on this one. Technically missed it, half point.
All right, so a half point so far. Number 2. That also means for the first time ever, 2 teams that didn't win their own conference will receive bids to the college football playoff. I completely forgot I made that prediction. That happened. Neither TCU nor Ohio State won their conference, and both made the playoff. So there's a full point there, Mark.
So you nailed it there. We all thought that those non-conference champions would come from the SEC and the Big Ten. Who in the world would have thought, okay, number 1, TCU is going to the college football playoff. Number 2, they're going to do it without winning the Big 12.
Right. Kind of an odd way to get there, but it worked. Number 3, there will be no undefeated teams in the FBS this season. There were actually a couple. Of course, Michigan and Georgia both finished undefeated at the end of the regular season, so that didn't work itself out.
Okay, so you're going for just the regular season,
yes.
So you missed it twice.
Yeah.
I was thinking Georgia was the only slip up there. So I'm going to deny you the point out of the honesty that you came forthright on the season-long prediction start to finish. Because otherwise, it's only 1 out of 131 that made it all the way.
All right, number 4. 3 of the Power 5 conference championship games will feature a head coach in his first year at the school. So Sonny Dykes at TCU, first year, right? Lincoln Riley at USC, first year, right? Okay, so then you had Mac Brown, Dabo Swinney. No, not the first year there. You would have had in the SEC, you would have had Brian Kelly in his first year. So yeah, that turned out to be true. I nailed that one too.
Well, this is where crafting the question and the prediction worked out for you, I believe. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking Brent Venables was a possible selection there.
I was thinking of him when I made the pick, but I didn't name him, so I'm taking the point.
Exactly. You take the point.
Yeah.
You got it. That's why I say you did well in crafting the question.
All right, so that's 2.5 right so far. This is actually a pretty good start. All right, keep in mind, these are all written in July. Number 5, after they each saw their FBS conference championship streaks halted in 2021, both Oklahoma and Clemson will win their respective conferences in 2022. Well, I get a half there, right? Because I got Clemson correct.
Yep.
Pardon me. Sorry. So that puts me up to 3. All right. Number 6, Cincinnati will go from being the first group of 5 team to make the college football playoff to not even making its conference championship game. That almost happened, actually. They did make the game, but then lost because Central Florida somehow lost to Navy at home, if I remember right. And that let Cincinnati get into the AAC conference championship game. So that one did not happen. Number 7, Ryan Day will leave Ohio State after the season to take over for retiring Andy Reid as head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. He will then be replaced by Cincinnati's Luke Fickell, who, of course, is now, as you know, Mark, with the Wisconsin Badgers. But do you think there's any chance, if Andy Reid steps aside, that Ryan Day would take that job?
Well, we're obviously going to have to hold out on this one, but this was by far your boldest prediction. It had a number of intricacies involved, and it seemed outlandish to me, but it's still out there. It's still in play, but I am not expecting that in any such way to happen, but it could.
Okay. All right, so 3 right. Dude, if I can get like 4 or 5 of these in a year, I mean, that's pretty good. Air Force will become the first Service Academy team to qualify for a prestigious New Year's 6 bowl bid. That did not happen, Mark, but to your point that when I was wrong, I was often in the ballpark, here's what did happen. There were only 3 teams this year in college football that Las Vegas favored in every game. Do you know who they are? Or I'm sorry, 2 teams that Las Vegas favored in every game. Do you know who they are? One of them's obvious.
Georgia.
You know who the other one was? Air Force. Vegas favored Air Force in every game this year. Georgia and Air Force were the only 2 teams to be favored in all 12 regular season games.
You know, I wanted to backtrack on one of these, Steve. You got to give yourself another point or another half point, depending on how you counted this. The American Conference Championship game was played between Tulane and UCF.
Oh, UCF did make it, so I was wrong. So that's a full point then. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're at 4 points then. Wow. All right. Why did I think UCF lost to Navy and that's what let Cincinnati in there? Okay, but all right. All right, so 4 points is what I have. Okay, this is off to a pretty good start. Number 9, this one did not go well. Minnesota will end the longest Rose Bowl drought among charter Big Ten members and be invited to Pasadena for the first time in 60 years. So I was thinking this because I thought Michigan and Ohio State both make the playoff. The Rose Bowl takes the next team, which is Minnesota, who I thought was going to be, like a 10-win Big Ten West team. That didn't work out.
Yeah, they were a couple spots away from having that distinction, but you can look at it this way. Purdue won the West. Minnesota had the same overall record as Purdue. So they were right there and won a bowl game to finish at 9-4. So it's not like Minnesota was that far out of the realm.
So it wasn't completely crazy. I haven't been crazy yet. All right, let's keep it going. Number 10. After losing 4 games in a season only once between 1969 and 2001, Nebraska will lose at least 4 games for the 19th consecutive season. But Scott Frost will win enough games this season to keep his job. So I thought they'd go 6-6 and he'd keep his job. That didn't happen, but the losing streak or the streak of 4 loss or more seasons continued. So do I get a half point there? What do you think, Judge?
Well, you certainly get the half point because technically it's correct that you predicted Nebraska's record and that they would continue to lose that many games. It's funny that you take the guy that was the hottest seat in America and you thought he was going to survive.
You know me, I like the contrarian play because that's usually where the money and the value is. All right. So that's 5 or 4.5. 4.5 I have right so far. Number 11, Auburn will lose at least 4 games for the 15th time in 17 years and will fire coach Brian Harsin and replace him with Liberty's Hugh Freeze. Bow down, America.
Give yourself some bonus
points. I freaking nailed that one. The East German judge gave me a 6.0 retroactively to 1987 for this one right here, Mark. I called that poop in July, brother. Step back.
You get a bonus point there somewhere. You've got 3 predictions in one and you nailed them all.
All right, you want to give me a bonus? I will take it. That gives me 6. Recognize. All right. Number 12, Mike Leach will lead Mississippi State to just its third top 15 finish in the AP poll since 1981. Now, of course, he passed away. I'm trying to think, where were they ranked in the final AP poll? I don't think they made the top 15. They were ranked in the AP poll, though, after not being in the preseason. They finished 20th. Yeah. Okay, so they were in the final AP poll after not being ranked in the preseason, because I was higher on them than the market, but they didn't finish as high as I had thought.
And I was right there with you. I had a 9-3 regular season. They went 8-4, win the bowl game, go 9-4. So they're in the fringe of the top 15 in the nation. The reason I give you a bit of a disclaimer there as well, some cushion, is that I hate to try to predict what other people are going to rank teams. So could they at 9-4 as an SEC team be ranked in the top 15 in the nation? They could. So they're on the cusp of that, but technically you missed it. So I'm going half point on that one.
Half a point. All right. So that's 6.5. Number 13, both Vanderbilt and Duke will fail to win a single conference game this season somewhere. And his name escapes me. First of all, Vandy nearly made a bowl game. Duke, I think, won 8 games under its first-year coach.
Yes.
Who, if he does that again, will be a hot name in the coaching carousel, next winter. So that one was not even close. That one wasn't even close.
Duke impressed me so much. They didn't get blown out one game this season.
I know.
Every within one score, all 4 losses, 9-4 season, played really competitive football. Mike Elko was exceptional this year.
Future star, no question about that. Number 14, NC State will have just its second double-digit win season in school history and finish in the top 10 of the AP poll for the first time ever. That did not happen. I mean, would they start 3-4 different quarterbacks this year? I mean, they still had by their program's historic standards, a pretty good season, but they did not have the all-time breakthrough season that I forecasted, so that's a miss.
Yeah, they look like they were on their way. Devin Leary gets hurt. They shuffle around 2-3 other quarterbacks, finish 8-5. But that was actually what I thought was one of your safer predictions.
So
but did not
I thought the same thing at the time in July. So who knows? Yeah, that's why they play the games. Number 15, perhaps no player will raise their NFL draft status more than Stanford quarterback Tanner McKee, who will set the Cardinal season passing record. So that did not happen. But Pro Football Focus actually has him rated as a first-round pick at quarterback, so I doubt that will happen. But I think right now you've got to give me a miss on this one.
I'm going to go complete miss on this one, although you had a better read on what guys are being projected to be as NFL quarterbacks. I know that a lot of guys were high on him. I'm not a big NFL draft guy until that weekend, so I don't know where he was, but certainly did not set the Stanford passing record.
My team total talent ratings, the one team it missed the most on is it really forecasted an up year for Stanford, and that obviously did not happen, and the David Shaw era is at an end. All right, next up, number 16, Troy linebacker Carlton Marshall will set the all-time college football career record for tackles. He needs 104 more. That absolutely did happen.
Bam.
So that's 7.5 I've gotten right so far. Number 17, for the first time ever, Wisconsin will fail to make the Big Ten championship game for a third consecutive season. Mark, that happened. That's 8.5 I've gotten correct so far, man.
Good selection there, and not that Wisconsin could not have won the Big Ten West, but I think this was one of your safer selections. You went with the field against Wisconsin.
Number 18, the Heisman Trophy finalists will be in alphabetical order. This didn't turn out good. Will Anderson? No. Travion Henderson barely played. C.J. Stroud? Yes. Bryce Young? I don't think he was a finalist, actually. Was he?
No.
So I had all 4 guys coming from the same 2 teams. Yeah, and I only got 1 out of 4. So that didn't turn out well. Number 19, Bryce Young will become the first 2-time winner of the Heisman Trophy since Archie Griffin 50 years ago. That one was a miss. Although you could argue, given that he didn't have Jamison Williams just to throw the ball as far as he could to, he might have been better this season, actually, than he was last year. And
that's one of the big reasons why I do not make predictions based on what other people select.
By the way, a little trivia. Do you know why his name, Jamison Williams' name, is spelled Jameson? Do you know why? He's a former Buckeye. Do you know why? Because his name literally means James' son. His dad's name is James William. So it's Jameson, and it's spelled that way because it literally means James' son. That's why it's spelled that way. Little fun fact, you'll sleep well tonight, America, knowing that one. All right, let's continue. Number 20. The results of the top 5 September non-conference games will be Ohio State over Notre Dame, Alabama over Texas, Texas A&M over Miami, Georgia over Oregon, Nebraska over Oklahoma. I got 4 of those 5 correct. Is that good enough for any points, according to you, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's a half point right there. Technically 80%, but you went on the limb once and paid for it. But you went with chalk otherwise, so it's reasonable. 1/2 point.
For me, going up with chalk is going out on a limb. I don't like to do that. So, but all right, so that brings me to 8, which is like one of my best years ever. Number 21, Iowa, Pittsburgh, and Wake Forest will start the season in the AP Top 25, but won't finish there. So I know Iowa didn't finish there. Did Pittsburgh end up finishing in the top 25? Aaron, can you clarify that?
I'm looking right now. They did.
All right.
Iowa didn't start in the top 25.
Yeah.
Pitt must have just snuck in. They went 9-4.
When they beat UCLA. What about Wake Forest? Did they finish there?
Let me look here.
8-5. No.
Okay.
No.
So I got 2 out of those 3 right. What do you think?
That's a half point.
Okay. All right. So that brings me to 9 overall. Number 22, Central Florida, Air Force, and Mississippi State won't start the season in the AP Top 25, but will finish there. So did those 3 teams all finish in the top 25, Aaron?
1 out of 3.
Air Force, no.
Air Force with 10 wins did not finish in there. Okay. All right, so Mississippi State was the only one I got right, so no points there then. Well, for 1 out of 3. All right, so that still puts me at 8.5. Number 23, the following first-year coaches will lead their team to bowl games this season. Mario Cristobal at Miami, no. Kalen DeBoer, Washington, yes. Michael Desmarais at Louisiana, yes. Sonny Dykes at TCU, yes. Tony Elliott, Virginia, no. Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, yes. Brian Kelly, LSU, yes. Dan Lanning, Oregon, yes. Rhett Lashley at SMU, yes. Billy Napier at Florida, yes. Lincoln Riley at USC, yes. Jeff Tedford at Fresno State, yes. I only missed 2 of those. That's got to be at least a half a point.
Yeah, it's 11 out of 13, but you put yourself out there for, having to complete the entire answer. So a half point.
All right, that brings me, am I at 9 now? That's a hell of a number, man, by the way. I mean, that is a hell of a number, 9. All right, next up, let's wrap it up. Were you going to say something there, Mark, really quick?
No, you're good.
All right, number 24. Liquidate these teams that will win at least 2 fewer games than they did last season. Arizona State, check. Cincinnati, not counting bowl games, by the way. Cincinnati, check. Coastal Carolina, check. Louisiana, check. Michigan State, check. Nevada, check. Pittsburgh, check. San Diego State, no. Utah State, check. UTSA, check. Wyoming, check. That's pretty good, dude, right there, man. I should have bet all those win totals is what I should have done. That's pretty good right there.
It really was. Nice job. That's a full point. You missed 1 out of like 11 or 12. So that's a full point.
All right, that gets me to 10. This is going to be like the best crystal ball I've ever done, like in my life. All right, number 25. Invest in these teams that will win at least 2 more games than they did last year. Miami, no. Mississippi State, check. Nebraska, no. North Carolina, check. Stanford, no. Texas, no. Right? Then they no, check, because they went 5-7, 8-4. So yeah. Yep. Toledo, check. USC, check. Washington, check. So I missed Miami and Nebraska out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I got 7 out of those 9.
Half point.
That's 10.5, Mark, out of 25 predictions, man. That's friggin' good, dude. I mean, that's pretty good, man. I should retire. I should never do the crystal ball, Mark, ever again. I guarantee you I will never do better than that the rest of my life. That's incredible that I got that many right.
Through those predictions, yeah, that is pretty damn good, I got to admit. And I love the creativity involved in the predictions. I look forward to looking and reviewing these each and every season and poking holes in them. But yeah, you carry those through pretty well.
All right, good stuff, my friend. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Are we going to be talking about Harbaugh at this time next year, about the same NFL jobs that, the 3 worst teams in the league?
Well, I think it comes down to, as I said a few minutes ago before you came on, let's see what the buyout looks like. Let's see if the buyout has some teeth. Let's say it's $8 to $10 million. now you're dealing with a 60-year-old coach, and they don't hire 60-year-old coaches in the NFL these days anyway. But a year from now, when you got all these guys coming back, you're going to lose a lot of these guys heading into 24. Going to be kind of rebuilding, by Michigan standards, So you're looking at probably like an 8-4, 9-3, 24 team with that much youth. And, but he'll be 60. So you're going to hire a 60-year-old coach, $12 to $15 million a year, and $10 million out of your own pocket. So the first year, a 60-year-old coach for, say, $25 million, I don't know that there's much of a market for that a year from now, Mark. Do you think there is? I don't know that there is.
I agree with your thought process. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh does.
Yeah, I think, but he may not. But the interest has to go the other way. But that's why I want to see what the buyout is, because that also tells me what Jimmy is thinking, right? That tells you what Jimmy is thinking as well. So what's the buyout here? And they don't have a deal done yet. That'll be done in the next few weeks, and then the buyout will come out. Just 2 years ago, that Jimmy had a lower buyout than the Louisiana Tech coach after the 2020 season. So let's see what the buyout looks like. And I think that's going to answer a lot of questions about whether we have to do the As the Harbaugh Turns telethon 12 months from now again. So good to see you as always, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, Steve.
You bet. Back in a moment.
Thanks, Mark. Have a good one.
Thank you, Aaron.
See
Appreciate
ya.
it.
Holy cow, dude. I freaking crushed that.
You did?
That's like the best crystal ball I maybe I've ever had.
I wasn't sure if you had crushed that. I don't know. You didn't really make that clear while we were recording the segment. Glad you clarified that.
This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you, do you approve of the job Warde Manuel has done overall at Michigan as athletic director? And this one was nip and tuck. Not so much. 75% of you, or 76% of you, I even underestimated it. 76% of you said no. 24% of you said yes. So I don't know if Santa Ana reads polling, but if we're making a move here, looks like the masses would certainly be in favor of it. Doesn't mean they're right, but does seem to be what they think. That brings us to our feedback of the week. Let's talk a little Michigan basketball, because we don't hate ourselves enough. N. Jankowski, 81, writes, I love Juwan Howard, but this team isn't built the same way as before. It's been a slow decay the last couple of years. I didn't watch 1 second of the Iowa game, so that's a plus for me. That was a tough watch. It's hard to lose a game by 9, not on the road at Iowa. I mean, it's a consistent top 30, top 40 program in college basketball. Carver Hawkeyes, not an easy place to play. Almost none of the gyms in the Big Ten are an easy place to play. So losing by 9 on the road at Carver Hawkeye certainly is not an insult. Losing by 9 in any game, though, that went to overtime is, period. I mean, you have to El Foldo, okay? I mean, you've got to lay down like the Wi-Fi at the big house to lose by 9 in overtime. Man, you have to. And then you look at the last couple of minutes, how they just completely gave that game away. That was a tough watch. And they've done this now several times. They did it against Virginia, did it against North Carolina, did it against Kentucky, did it against Iowa. By the way, those are all potential quad 1 wins that Michigan could use about 60 days from today. Because do you know how many quad 1 wins Michigan has right now? Well, it's a really low number. Yeah, that one. So we're going to do everything we can possibly do to milk football for as long as we possibly can here on this program before turning the page to basketball. And that may never happen unless they play well enough to make us want to do that, which is a shame. I love hoops. I love Juwan. I love Hunter. But the team is soft and needs a more experienced point guard. This is the second year in a row that we are trying to figure out the point guard position on the fly. I wish Juwan loved recruiting point guards like he does power forwards. That'll do it for this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, 5-star review, follow, all the great things that you can click on and do to help us find more Michigan sports fans just like you to keep growing our channel here on YouTube and our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and more. Thanks to all of you that have done all those things for us. We appreciate each and every one. Don't forget to also follow us on Twitter at Michigan Podcast in between episodes to keep up to date on what we think about all things maize and blue. Until the next time, right here, I'm Steve Deace. Go Blue.